so we're gonna be doing animal faces. So say if we're drawing something from the front, right? We got a dog. We got some kind of dog or wolf from the front. I don't want to see this. All right. So we have the snout moving on the side. We have full front. So this is disproportionate. It is not in perspective. I don't care what you tell me. That's incorrect. All right. We're trying to keep it accurate. This is not accurate. All right. I'm sorry if I'm crushing your dreams. This is just not how it goes. Technically, yes, you can do it if you want to keep it this way. But if you're going for something a little more accurate, this is incorrect. So what we want to do is we want to think of the faces in 3D shapes. Usually most people think of like the head in general as like a sphere. Kind of envision it with that curve. We also want to envision the snout as like a prism. You can foreshorten, right? I'm keeping these to really, really basic shapes right here. All right, so we're going with dogs, but this can go with cats, this can go with foxes, this can go with anything, right? You just want to make sure that you're shorthanding it. So if we're doing it from the front, you still want to think of that shape. It's easier to identify when you're actually looking at a picture of the animal that you are drawing. So forwards like this. So when we're looking from the front, we want to think of our faces like three-dimensional shape. Just think of like prisms. This is a sphere, so now it's a prism. Right, so again, you can apply this to really any animal. Doesn't matter which one. If you apply it to like a, say like a bird, like if you have like a beak, the beak is then like a cone, I guess. If you gotta go like a curved cone, depending on the bird that you're drawing. But again, it's the basic shape that you want to think of, right? You want to think of those really, really basic, like, prisms that we're working with, you know? So when you're drawing animal faces, you want to think of them in 3D sense. That way it's a little bit easier to draw them. Right, and then your nose would be kind of right here. Yep, always easier to think in those shapes, or those forms. Technically they're forms. If they're 3D, it is a form. Right now we're going to be talking about how to place the animal ears on a person's head in a proportional way. So ear placement. So if I kind of just draw a head for a second. So, number one thing that I see is people just place the ears right here. This is a really common one. It lends to more of an aesthetic than a function. If we're placing these ears on a human head, this does not work at all. Doesn't matter what kind of ear. Rabbit, dog, cat, bear, whatever, right? Is it incorrect? Technically, no. Again, it's another one of those ones where it's like, can you place it there? Yes. It works for aesthetic. It works for whatever. But it, you know, does not necessarily matter. What we're looking for instead, right, when we're placing ears, so we have a human head. When it comes to cats and dogs and whatever, they function a little bit differently, right? So our ear canals are placed here. Right? That's where our ears are. Naturally, our ear canals are placed there. The ear canals come out this way. They come from the top of our heads. They don't come from up here. They don't. Can they? I suppose. If you want to shift around everything, yes, you can place them there. But if you wanted to do something that lends a little bit more to the humanoid aesthetic, which is something that I tend to prefer to lean towards, you would have your ears kind of start up there, and they would come down to the side of the head like this. That tends to be how it works a little bit more, because then you have your ear canal down here, and then the big ear functions like it should. Because really, what our ears are doing is they're amplifying the abilities of our ear canal so that they can hear in a certain way. It's kind of like if you place like a cup next to a speaker, right? That cup helps amplify the sound of the speaker. And that's really what these ears do. That's why animals can hear so well. So what we want to do is we want to bring these animal ears kind of down to where our ear canals are. I actually think the larger look is a lot cuter, personally. That's a personal thing. Bring the ears down to the ear canal. Like cupping a speaker. You know, like when you're holding your phone and you put your hand, like you cup it around the speaker so that the sound can like curve more towards you. That's generally what these ears are doing. So this is more for aesthetic. This is more for function. If you want your ears to function, like if you're making a D&D character, or if you're making like an Arknights character or whatever, maybe you want like to have more function to your design compared to just aesthetic. It's the same deal with bunny ears, like, you know, bring them down. Bear ears are a little bit tougher because bear ears are more circular, a little bit smaller, so you don't really have the triangular shape to lend off of, so on and so forth. That tends to be how I think in terms of that. Horses are tricky. The thing with horses is that horse ears are not very large. So a lot of the times when we're thinking in this regard, people tend to break this rule for horses a lot. I break the rule for horses a lot. If we have like the person I tend to just kind of bring it slightly down, but I keep the ears more on top of the head, like rather than bringing it down. Because horse ears are not fluffy, they're very, very skin-like. Their ear canals rest on the top of the head, like others, but on a person, it looks a bit strange if you kind of have them down there. You can make them more fawn-like, like if you wanted them a little bit more fawn-like, then you can keep the ears down here. Right, that's what I do for deer, is I keep their ears down here. For horses, it's a bit different though. So for horses, I tend to break the rule and I just put the ear up on top. But for deer and the other kind of unguligrade animals, like deer, moose, all that fun jazz, I tend to put the ears on the side instead. The thing with placing animal parts on a person is that it's all fantasy, right? You can try and make it as biological as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, it is fantasy. So you can do whatever you want at your own discretion. Consider these like tips to help you make them look better and more realistic and more functional. But at the end of the day, like there is really no really harsh, correct way to draw it. Do the best you can. The thing with horns, it's hard to do horns wrong because there really isn't a wrong way to do them. So horn placement. So let me just write a little disclaimer here. Technically, there is no wrong way to draw horns. We'll talk the best placement in terms of weighting. If we're talking about like tiny little horns, we're talking about tiny little nubs, right? Those can be placed wherever the heck you want, right? Those are not heavy. Nobody cares, right? Just place them where you want. There are better places to place horns though if you have really, really large ones. So if we have like big ram's horns, 2 places, right? If we have really, really big horns, this place back here, we start from back here on the head. This feels unbalanced. This is back heavy, right? So all really, really big horns, if you place them somewhere near the back of the head, those tend to feel really, really unbalanced and heavy and whatnot. So it feels a little bit awkward if you draw them coming from there. Generally, with larger horns, I tend to kind of give this rule. So larger horns tend to look better when placed in this area. Right, so this kind of quadrant, this kind of area on the front of the head, starting from the middle top of the head or the middle side of the head, going down to like the forehead, that tends to look better when you're placing larger horns in that area. So that's ram's horns, that's deer horns, that's demon horns, whatever you're kind of going for. So if we have like, so if we've got like really big, funky ram's horns, what I kind of like to do is I start them from the top, kind of bring them around like that. That tends to look really nice. Because it wraps around the head, it's almost like you're giving your character a helmet. So this feels a little bit more balanced.
If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon.
I tend to do them on the forehead, but like, I know that a lot of people don't always do that. If you have them placed a little bit farther back, like if you kind of have them farther on the head, I'd just be careful that you don't bring them back a little bit too far. So if their hairline is down here instead, if you got bigger horns, you might want to place them upwards, make them a little bit thinner, so they feel a little bit stronger, but again, still remaining within that quadrant. One look that I tend to really, really love for horns is when they come straight from the forehead. So you have your person, and the horns come straight from there, and they're like the big, tall demon horns. I really like that look. But yeah, generally, if they kind of go within that quadrant, it tends to look really nice. You just really need to think about the weighting. Would the character be okay with the size of the horns that you're placing on the head? Right? Think about how heavy those horns probably are, right? Horns are not super, super light. So depending on how large they are, where do you think on the head they should be placed? And that's really up to your own discretion.
If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Join our art community with the links down below. If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon for working files, behind-the-scenes posts, and discounts on our class offerings. If you enjoyed this video, here's a couple other videos you can check out next.